Having heard that Princess Elena and her forces were under siege at their captured garrison, Ethan and his party made their way to the battle last episode. They survived with shockingly little trouble. The only real hitch that they encountered was Prince Kai, who had just landed with reinforcements for his sister. Kai nearly killed Ashley, mistaking her for a normal Raven foot soldier, but Ethan kept him from making the mistake a permanent one. The Heron siblings then reunited inside the garrison and began to talk about getting Ethan home, when he revealed that he wasn't going home. Proudly, Ethan announced that he had sworn his loyalty to Ashley and the Underground. And the news did not go over very well. Shocked and dismayed, Kai can't believe what he's hearing. If you're not here to go home, then why even come? Ethan repeats his goal of helping Elena, restating that he did not know that reinforcements, which included Kai, were coming. Well, fine then, Kai says. Why aren't you staying with us then? The invasion needs you. If the family really needs me, he quotes, you know I'll come back. Who said that, Ethan? Do you know who said that? Where is that Heron son now? Ethan is chagrined. He knows what he said. But the invasion doesn't need him. He would just be another sword in an army of swords. But fighting with the Underground, Ethan has a real chance to make a real difference in the world, to make the whole world a better place. Kai side-eyes a glare at Ashley. He can see what's going on here. Who's making the real decisions? You better watch out, man. Ethan stands his ground against this accusation. This was his decision and no one else's. Ashley has saved his life before, Ethan offers. Does that change his opinion of her at all? Her brother killed our brother, so no, it doesn't, Kai argues back. He turns to Skink next. Skink has known Ethan his whole life. Maybe he can talk some sense into him. But Skink can't. First of all, it's not his place to tell Ethan what to do or what is right. And second, Ethan is doing what he thinks is right. He made this decision all on his own, and he must follow it through. Frustrated, Kai now scowls at Skink. Yes, I suppose that Ethan saving the lesser races suits your purposes just fine. Finally, Ethan puts his foot down. He has seen things during his time in the East that have changed him. The Underground wants to free the lesser races from slavery, and that is a good cause. Ethan believes that it is a goal worth fighting for. He doesn't expect Kai to understand that. How could he? He hasn't been through the things that Ethan has. But he does expect Kai to trust him when he says that this is the right thing to do. Bitterly, Kai turns away, muttering quietly that Ethan is needed. Elena rests a hand on Ethan's shoulder. She doesn't get it, but Ethan has always followed his heart, and she won't stand in the way of that. She just hopes that he knows what he's doing. So you're really gonna do this, Kai says. Then he pulls out the parental shame card. What do you expect us to tell our parents? Ethan tells him confidently to tell them what he always tells them. That he loves them. Elena then approaches Ashley. They don't know each other very well, but please, take care of Ethan. Ashley replies that they'll take care of each other. And then Ethan's party leaves. Sighing, Kai supposes that they should confer with Burned Rex on their strategy then, but he appears to have disappeared. He was here last issue. He spoke to Ethan. We saw him. Burned? Kai shouts. Burned Rex? There is no reply. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 18.12 of Scion, Finding Sanctuary. Mars promised us a confrontation between Ethan and his siblings last issue, and we have now seen that confrontation play out. But, kinda shockingly, I have some problems with it. Going into this scene, Ethan is the character who has the most to lose. He is telling his family that this cause, the Underground, is more important than their problems. that racial justice is more important than war. His connection to his family is on the line here, and coming out of the scene, Kai and Elena seem largely fine with Ethan's decision. I mean, Kai probably isn't a fan of the idea, but he doesn't really yell at Ethan. He doesn't, disown him or tell him that he hates him or he casts him out of the family or anything. Kai tried to reason with Ethan, and when he fails, he does just seem to accept Ethan's choice. And, to be fair, that is a great way to demonstrate how much love and faith the Heron family have for each other. But it is also super low stakes for Ethan. Ethan effectively abandons his family, and yet his narrative doesn't change. That is incredibly frustrating from a storytelling perspective. I once spoke about how Scion, by focusing on Ethan, wasn't giving us a story about a good person having to choose between doing a difficult good deed over doing an easy evil deed, like a lot of American comic books do. Ethan is a good person, and his challenge in this book is in choosing which good deed is the greater good deed to do. The problem with that level of moral superiority, though, is that it allows Ethan's whole family to have that same trait. They raised him, after all. So Kai doesn't blow up on Ethan or disown him or even hate him coming out of this argument. He's just kind of hurt. Ultimately, he does accept Ethan's decision and lets him go. This is very mature of Kai and Elena, and it shows that they are rational thinking adults, but let's face it, it's also ducking boring. Having said his big piece, Ethan doesn't come out of this moment any different than he was going into it. This speech doesn't cost him anything, it doesn't reveal a side of Ethan that we've never seen before, nor does it indicate anything unknown about his relationship with either his family or Ashley. If this bit of story in issues 18 and 19 didn't happen, literally nothing in Ethan's story would change moving forward from here. So not only does this scene lack impact, it also lacks consequences. Maybe if our last issue ended differently, this could have worked. Let's say last issue ended with Ethan distraught over having to do the mercy killing of the test subjects, and he was depressed and he was isolating himself, but then the crew heard about Elena's siege. This would then perk Ethan up. If they save Elena, he can maybe catch a ride out of this eastern hellhole. Maybe he even suggests to Ashley that they smuggle her out, or maybe she can see how distraught Ethan is over the mercy killing, and she just tells him to leave. Clearly he's not cut out to be a member of the Underground. But once they get him here, he would have to see something on the battlefield that would change his mind, like, oh, remember Karn and his unit getting pounded between the Heron and Raven forces last issue? Make Karn a lesser racist soldier. Have it so that his unit is the unit that is dying in this stupid war, and Ethan arrives just in time to fail in saving them, and then he discovers that it was his family doing the killing. He would then make his decision to join the Underground here, in this issue, thus sacrificing his current relationship to his family in order to do the right thing. Wow. It has been a while since I just totally rolled into a story pitch. That was invigorating. So, while this scene does do pretty much nothing for Ethan or his narrative, it does show us some interesting things about Prince Kai. I do appreciate Kai, who just cannot at all get where Ethan is coming from, trying to work his way through Ethan's motivations. At first, he thinks that maybe Ethan is doing this because of Ashley, and like I said, there is definitely a chemistry there. But Ethan isn't doing this for Ashley. She pitched it, sure, but she is not his main motivation. He's not doing this just to get in her pants. So, Kai then suggests that Skink is manipulating Ethan to bring equality to the lesser races. And that's an interesting idea. We've seen that lesser races members have been built specifically to be weapons, and that Skink has an odd assortment of superpowers. Could Skink be some kind of, long-term secret agent for the Underground? He's definitely been manipulating Ethan. I think we've seen enough evidence of that, but to what end he is manipulating him is rather unclear. After he and Ethan visited the sanctuary, Skink did question the wisdom of fighting Brawn again. Maybe he wanted Ethan to stay with the Underground. It hasn't felt like that in our narrative, but Skink has also not really been much of a character, so it's a little hard to say. But it is an interesting train of thought to think about. But anyways, Prince Kai. I'd like that he tries to understand Ethan's motivations at least, and that understanding does come from a place of love. He wants his brother safe in the West, or at least fighting at his side, where he can keep an eye on him and keep him safe. Kai already lost a brother, and now another one wants to run off with a member of the Raven royal family, no less, on some harebrained, bleeding heart idealistic cause. I can see why this bugs him. But Kai isn't our main character. So Kai called for Burned Rex, the foreign advisor who has been helping the Herons in their war effort, and Rex was nowhere to be found. We find him in a clearing in the woods, although where exactly this clearing is unclear. Standing across from him in the clearing is Mai Shen, another foreign advisor, but one who is allied with the Ravens, and given Braun a portion of her power. Rex asks Mai Shen what she's calling herself here, and she introduces herself. She then asks his name, and he gives it. He comments on this location that she picked. It's fairly secluded. She thought it was high time that they met, and, given who they are, it was best that they do so in private. She congratulates him on the Heron's latest victory, reinforcing the princess at the garrison. They were sent here to monitor the sigil bearer and bring him under their influence, Byrne says. So let's stop pretending we care about this conflict or its outcome. You've given one of them, meaning a human, meaning Prince Braun, a portion of your power. Why? Mai Shen smiles. Because I like him, she replies. Byrne doesn't want to see Mai Shen succeed here, but he can't help but wonder what good giving out her power does in the larger picture. What he's really asking here is how does empowering Braun help bring Ethan under the sway of House Sinister, the group of gods that Mai Shen works for? Oh, like Byrne's subtle methods have worked so far, she replies. But she also goes on. Is Byrne anything special where they come from? Is he important? Because she sure isn't. And she doesn't think that he is either. They're lackeys, that's how they got this job. But she doesn't plan to stay one. Mai Shen is going to stay here and she's going to rule this planet. What's that old saying? Better to rule in sci-fi fantasy world than serve in heaven? Byrne can't believe that he's hearing this. There was another turncoat on another world, and things did not go well for him when his aspirations came to light. Does she have a shred of loyalty in her? Does she feel no connection to her own house? Mai Shen's fists spark red. Her only loyalty is to herself. She unleashes a blast of energy on Rex, shattering the nearby trees and forcing him back. Rex flashes his own yellow energy at her, but Mai Shen barrels at him, clasping both of her hands on his face. "He won't let her be a renegade!" he cries. She growls back, "I will be a goddess!" Energy erupts from their conflict, and the camera pulls out. The beam of energy released goes up into the sky, pushing away the clouds like an atom bomb. As the energy fades, we start to zoom back in, but a thick cloud of dust obscures the battlefield. When it clears, we only see one body lying in the smoke. The burn-out corpse of Burned Rex lies on the ground. Mai Shen is nowhere to be seen. So this scene came out of nowhere, right? Rex has been a background concern, at best, and suddenly he's challenging Mai Shen? Suddenly he thinks he's her keeper? And he gets to die for it? Wow. I suppose Mars called him a burned wreck for a reason, because he sure got wrecked here. Unfortunately, because of the way Rex has been used in the story so far, his death here carries little weight. To begin with, he's barely been present in this comic at all. It's not like Rex got to join Ethan's party as the tactician/mage or something like that, and he spent a lot of time with him, and through Ethan, us, the audience. We don't know Burned Rex almost at all. We don't know his morals. We barely even understand why he's here. Secondly, almost every previous scene with Rex has had him creep after Ethan or have someone else point out how untrustworthy he is because he's creeping after Ethan. So we haven't been made to like Rex as a person. He isn't a sympathetic character. He's kind of a suspicious, sneaky creep. In fact, personally, I'm kind of glad that he's dead, because at least now he won't pose a threat to Ethan. This particular scene is also really reliant on the reader understanding the broader cross-gen universe. Without the context of the other comics, all we know here is that Mai Shen and Bernd are from a race of godlike beings, and that they are on opposite sides. We've actually spent a lot of time with Mai Shen, and we're pretty familiar with her wants. She wants to rule Avalon, and she plans to use Brawn to do it. Not that we are invested in that particular goal, but it is a clear goal, where Bernd's goal has been much more vague. Who is this renegade that he talks about? Well, we don't know. Why is Rex invested in keeping Mai Shen from going rogue? Well, we don't know. These two are on opposite sides of this conflict. He just said that. So why does he bother getting in her way? I just don't know, and this scene doesn't work. The explosion is cool, like, that's a dope way to demonstrate the sheer destructive power that a member of the First can have. And the coloring here looks great. Again, Justin Ponsor just crushed the coloring here. He makes the beefy energy effects look so crisp and so clean, like they look like energy. So we transition from the dried corpse of burned Rex to the stone statue of King Victor in the Raven Throne Hall, where we find Prince Court. He's staring at his father's stone face quietly, and King Braun enters the room, demanding to know where Mai Shen is. Calmly, Court replies that he doesn't know. She's Braun's whatever she is. That reply does not sit well with Braun. You best mind your tongue, brother. I already have one sibling under a death sentence. I am your brother, but I am also your king. You don't want to underestimate me. Despite his brother's glare and threat, Court doesn't blink. Calmly, he replies, No, that was Father's mistake, wasn't it? Braun lifts his head, almost taking Court in anew after that statement. Does he know? Is he guessing? How worried should Braun be here? Suddenly, Mai Shen appears next to them, interrupting. She is very calm, very pleased with herself. Braun demands to know where she's been, and Mai tells him that yes, she's fond of him, but don't think that she's responsible for reporting to him. That said, she is fond of him, and she was dealing with certain strategic concerns. The Herons won't be quite the military threat that they have been. Mai Shen then takes Braun by the arm and leads him out of the room, saying that they have much to talk about. Well, that is a development. And I'm not talking Mai Shen's survival. Like, she clearly won that fight. Like, we only saw Burn's dead body, and I never used self-destruct when I was playing Pokemon, so I can't see why she would do that either. She wants to be a queen, not a corpse. Mai Shen's survival was never in doubt as far as I'm concerned. I do dig her pulling rank on Braun a bit, because, she is a god, and he is just a human, so it's a little cool to see her arrogance coming back. No, what I really dig is Court. Prince Court has been playing second fiddle to Braun since he first appeared in this comic, and has had little to no personality, probably less than Skink, I would argue. We've been told that he followed Braun around as a child, and he clearly let his brother take the lead back in issue 8 with the hunting and killing of the escaped Lesser Races member, Nock. When Braun told Court about their father's death and Ashley's guilt, Court appeared to believe Braun. He even destroyed the sanctuary at his command. So I do think that Court is aware of Braun's, personality flaws. But he doesn't seem to have ever really stood up to Braun before. So why does Court suspect that Braun killed their father? What does he know? And will he do anything about it? Does Court feel guilty for destroying the sanctuary? Does he feel suckered by Braun's false narrative? I really appreciate that Court's dialogue feels like Ashley's dialogue with Braun, actually. Everyone in the Raven Kingdom feels smarter than Braun does, and he always just kind of has to stand there on take it until he gets a chance to kick them in the ankles. Let's just hope that Court doesn't get himself killed because of his sassy mouth. We now rejoin Ethan and his party. They picked up some loose mounts from the battlefield and GTFO'd away from the garrison. Ashley is the one doing the talking here when we cut to them, explaining where they got their mounts from for us, and that they are approaching the ruins where Ethan and Skink first met Exeter. She asks him for confirmation of this, but Ethan doesn't reply. She has to almost shout his name to finally get his attention. Ethan! He looks up, apologizing for being lost in thought. Ashley asks if he's thinking about his family. She knows that kind of pain. And yeah, Ethan knows that he's doing the right thing, but it's still hard. He started this war, and yet he is also abandoning it for others to fight for him. His family must hate him right now, and he has no idea how to fix it. They'll stop here for the night, he says. So what next? Ashley asks. They're going to find a new sanctuary for the underground, Ethan says. The lesser races used to at least have some place to hope about. Right now, they have nothing. So, they need to give the lesser races hope and find them a new home. He suggests that they head north, but Exeter suddenly cuts him off. They aren't alone. A woman suddenly bursts out of the ruins. She appears to be Indian, as in from the subcontinent of India, with light brown skin and long black hair. Silver jewelry adorns her ears and forehead. She is dressed in shades of purple, like she's got a tunic over some knee-high boots. She trips as a reptilian monster charges through the stone wall behind her. Ethan recognizes it immediately as a wyvern. He summons his sword, kicks his mount, and charges to the rescue. The wyvern rears up as it approaches the woman, but Ethan cuts it off. He swings his sword, driving it back, and after a brief scuffle, stabs it in the chest. Backing away from its corpse, the rest of the party finally runs up, weapons drawn. Ashley asks if Ethan is okay, and he's fine. But what about the woman? She stands. No, she isn't hurt, but she would have been if it hadn't been for him. She thanks him and explains that they don't have wyverns where she comes from. She had been planning on bedding down here for the night when she came upon its nest and it started attacking her. She didn't even have time to grab any of her weapons. Finally, she introduces herself, saying that her name is Nadia Thindi. Hey, other than Burned Rex, that's the first surname that we've had in Scion. Everyone else has just been of the Raven or of the Herons. Huh. So, and I love this part, our heroes don't reciprocate her introduction, they just stand there and stare at her awkwardly. Nadia is clearly put off by this. In her lands, when someone introduces themselves, it's customary to return the act. Well, if you're really a stranger in these lands, I suppose it couldn't hurt, Ethan says. He introduces the rest of the group, explaining that they're underappreciated by the Raven King. And it's actually kind of funny to hear him say that, because these guys move so easily about the Raven landscape that I kind of forget that they're probably outlaws. Nadia, however, knows what it means to be an outsider. They saved her without even knowing her, which makes them worthy of her trust, at least. If they don't want her to ask questions, she'll honor that. Ethan shakes her hand, if she doesn't mind his question about her hand, the silver one. Nadia holds up her silver hand. It's mechanical, yes. She was injured a number of years ago, and this is its replacement. She then offers to share her meager camp with our heroes, if they want. Ethan accepts the offer, thanking her. Nadia smiles. They're going to enjoy getting to know one another. I like the opening of this final scene. Ethan, lost in thought, still feeling the pain of having confronted his family. That's solid character work, and it's perfect for Ethan. Despite there being no worthwhile consequences of Ethan's announcement, he's clearly uncomfortable with having any kind of rift in his family. I can't blame him. The Heron royal family have appeared loving, concerned, and kind to pretty much all of their kids. It has got to be weird for Ethan to be on the outside of that. I also like seeing the groups return to the ruins that Ethan and Skink camped in between issues 3 and 4. That's a neat callback, good use of continuity. I am a little surprised to see Ashley asking Ethan what he plans to do, though. I know that Ethan is the main character of this comic, but Ashley doesn't know that. She has been a part of the underground for much longer than Ethan. Why is she letting him take the lead here? Ashley is a proven leader and fighter. Like, come on, man. Ethan has done nothing to prove that he should be in charge of this crew. In fact, his last plan was to sneak into the Raven Keep in the Raven capital in enemy territory so that he could kill Braun. And we all saw how well that plan worked out. You don't get to be in charge just because you're our lead character, Ethan. That's cheating. Well, I guess you do get to do it, but I mean, I don't have to like it. It's bad writing. It's weak. It's weak. We then meet and rescue Nadia. I don't have much of an opinion on her here. We did just meet her after all. Her overall design is neat, and she seems nice. She might be flirting with Ethan a little bit here at the end, which could be interesting. Ethan and Ashley have only just started to acknowledge that there might be something there after all. Adding Nadia in as a wrinkle could be kind of fun. Ethan is a handsome, strong prince after all. He is quite the catch. Who wouldn't fall for him? It is kind of weird, though, that Mars killed off Mysterious Stranger Burned Rex and then introduced Mysterious Stranger Nadia Thindi all in the same issue. Nadia, for the record, does not have any symbols from the first on her, so I don't think that she's some kind of replacement for him or anything like that. We're just going to have to see what Mars intends to do with this character. I just think it's a weird bit of serendipity. So let's keep going. We got another issue to knock out. Issue 21 maintains our creative team of Ron Mars, Jim Cheung, Don Hillsman II, and Justin Ponsor, and it opens on King Braun. He is wearing armor, he's mounted on a red and black lion, and he is delivering one hell of a patriotic speech. Positioned before a thick marble stone building with cameras projecting his image and a massive crowd of Raven soldiers watching, Braun really sells it. The Herons have wounded the Ravens. The wound has been allowed to fester and they need to flush the disease out. The crowd cheers. It's time for the Ravens to engage with the Herons in force. We cut to the Raven coastline, where we meet Dr. Moraine. He's giving out orders to the soldiers stationed at the facility. They can't leave anything to chance anymore. They could turn the tide of the war if their experiment is successful. He gets interrupted and turns around as Ashley approaches him. He's clearly flabbergasted by this. "Princess, your father is dead. They say you did it. What are you doing here?" Calmly, Ashley replies that she is the victim of an insidious Heron plot. "You shouldn't trust everything that you hear, Doctor." She can't explain, but one of the soldiers is bristling at her appearance. He reminds Moraine that the Doctor just told them to take no chances. They should report this, or capture her at the very least. Moraine defends Ashley, though, saying that they should hear her out. Ashley angrily sighs. Enough of this. She suddenly kicks both men in the face, knocking them out. Another guard hears this scuffle and tries to charge in, but Ethan steps out from behind a pillar and shocks him with a burst of energy. "You okay?" Ethan asks. Ashley is, so he then has to ask, "An insidious Heron plot?" Oh, you heard that. Anyways, this is why we're here. Ashley turns and gestures to a submersible resting in a water berth. It is golden in color and shaped like a fish. Armored plating makes up its body, and two large green orbs sit where the eyes would be. Ashley explains that the Royal Treasury paid for this device's development. That's how she knows about it. It was designed for undetectable reconnaissance, but she can't imagine that adding weapons is that far away from the designer's mind. They don't know how deep it can go, which is probably what Moraine was going to be testing here, but it should do what they need it to do. The rest of the party, meaning Skink, Exeter, and Nadia, join our heroes. Exeter comments that it looks rather cramped, and that is why they are staying behind. They know the plan. They're going to meet at a certain location in 5 days, assuming that Ethan and Ashley aren't about to die. Ethan apologizes for leaving Nadia so soon after allying with them, but she seems cool with it. She's just happy to help. Well, if that don't seem suspicious, I don't know what does. Skink and Ethan say their goodbyes, establishing that Skink wants to go with Ethan. Ethan would rather have Skink with Exeter, though. First off, this is Ethan's plan, so he has to go in the sub, and he needs Ashley because of her connections to the underground. Secondly, Exeter hasn't done anything suspicious yet, but he also hasn't really not done anything suspicious yet, and so Ethan would like Skink to keep an eye on him. Ethan then gives his old friend a letter. If something should happen to him, please make sure that his parents get this. Skink takes the letter, but he's confident that Ethan will find what he's looking for, if he really wants to find it. Ethan looks at Ashley and the water beyond her. He does want to. This scene works well overall. Given the cover of this issue, in which Ethan and Ashley are being chased by a giant fish while underwater, and the sub that we just saw, I'm guessing that we're going to be visiting the undersea city that was introduced back in issue 5. That's neat, and I dig the sub design. It feels very steampunk, very 1920s imagining tech from the future kind of. It doesn't really fit with the sleek and clean technology that we have seen elsewhere in Avalon, but we are also told that this sub is a new development, so it is a work in progress, so its slightly unnatural look might be part of the development process. I am a bit surprised to have Nadia sticking around simply because, as of yet, we don't really have a reason for her to be here at all. She tells Ethan that he saved her life, so she's happy to help. So is this some kind of life debt thing? Is she just attracted to him and hiding it behind the life debt thing? I don't know, and this scene doesn't really tell us. She is clearly sticking around, so she has to have a reason. We just aren't being told it yet. Given how little Exeter and Skink have done over the last 2 issues, I won't lie, I'm not thrilled to have yet another cast member who stands around and does nothing, but okay, fine, we'll see how this goes, I guess. The stuff with Ethan and Ashley is kind of fun. Her hiding her death sentence behind a Heron plot is clever, I like that idea, but I can see why it would bother Ethan to hear it. The implication, obviously, is that the Herons are a sneaky or shifty people. They're untrustworthy, and encouraging that kind of thinking amongst the East only makes things worse for both nations. Even if Ashley doesn't believe that that is something that happened, she is reinforcing the idea that it could in her countrymen, so they're going to fight against the Herons that much more. We also have Ethan giving Skink a goodbye letter for his parents, and we'll get more into that in a minute. We're going to actually get to read the contents of the letter. I'm more interested in the idea behind this. Ethan already stated that this submarine might be a death trap, so our main thought is that Ethan is preparing in case he dies. But it's important to remember the context of what Ethan just went through in our last 2 issues that leads to him writing this letter. Ethan went to the fortress that Elena took over in order to help her and met with his brother and sister. He told them that he was no longer going to be part of the Heron War effort. He was joining the Underground full-time. And Prince Kai didn't take it too well, but he seemed to kind of bitterly accept it before Ethan left. But that is still a big break between Ethan and his family. As he stated, he feels he's the one who started this war, and now he's also ditching it, leaving his family to fight it instead. He feels terrible about this. So this letter isn't just a goodbye to his parents in case he dies. It's also a chance for him to explain himself to them in his own words, so that they don't have just Kai's angry perspective when he reports back home. I do want to cry a little bit about Ashley's outfit here, as it has a large M portion missing from the center of it, leaving her torso exposed from basically her cleavage to her navel. It is exactly the same area that Ethan got ran through back in issue 13, so you would think that you would want that area covered. It feels like the creative team is making Ashley sexy just so that she can be sexy, despite having largely ditched the more revealing costumes by this point in the story. The past several issues, Ashley's been pretty covered up. I think she maybe had one bit of midriff showing in issue 15, I think, and then otherwise she's been pretty well dressed. This just seems weird. As Ethan and Ashley dive into the depths of the Great Sea, Ethan's letter home is presented to us. He apologizes for not being in contact more and tells his parents that he loves them. If they are reading this, then he also apologizes for dying. Losing Artor was hard enough. Losing another son is unthinkable. But he's writing this to explain, in his own words, why he has done the things that he's done and what he is about to do. The monologue gets interrupted as we move inside of the submarine. Ethan and Ashley sit next to each other, pushed together by the small space. A yellow-green light fills the sub, coming from screens built into the console. But those screens are coming up blank. Ethan doesn't understand. He saw a city underwater. He didn't imagine it. The swimmers saved him. They spoke in his mind. They called it Haven. It wasn't a dream. And if I hadn't read that very issue, I would be questioning Ethan's sanity at this point. If I was Ashley, I know that I would be giving him "you're crazy eyes" at this point in the story. Amazingly, though, Ashley doesn't. She does say that if they can't find the city, then that's okay. There are other places that could serve as a new sanctuary. But this could be the safest place for the lesser races. They both agreed on that idea, Ethan argues. They still have some time before they need to surface. They'll keep searching for a while more. Quietly, Ashley thanks him. His commitment to the underground means a lot to her. And she rests her hand on his hand. Ethan promised the underground his loyalty. He doesn't want to fail them. Or Ashley. She removes her hand. You'd think that the two of them would have nothing in common. They're from different kingdoms, separated by the Great Sea and at war for centuries. But that's not the case, is it? She knows how hard it was for Ethan to break away from his family because she had to do the same in her own way. She almost caresses his face, but she holds back. Ashley says that she understands Ethan better than perhaps anyone else right now. And maybe, she hopes, he's starting to understand that the only people they really have left are each other. Ethan's hand settles on Ashley's cheek, and already close together to begin with, he leans in. The camera moves outside the sub, watching through the globular eye. As Ethan and Ashley lean in for a kiss, we can see a massive sea creature reflected in the sub's eye. As it approaches, its mouth opens wide. Inside the sub, our lovely couple is bounced around the hull as the creature slams into them. Water starts to pour in as the metal frame gives way. Ethan frantically asks if this thing has any kind of weapons at all, and Ashley says that it doesn't. It's only a scout ship. They make it to a hatch as the sea serpent closes in again, and exit the sub as pointed teeth close on it, shattering the submarine. When they hit the water and can no longer talk, Ethan's letter monologue starts anew. This is actually a very clever way of giving the reader something to, read, as opposed to just giving us an underwater action scene of silence. I also really appreciate the romantic build-up that we got just before it. We know from the cover that Ethan and Ashley are encountering a giant fish monster this issue. That's just facts at this point. The only real question is, how do they encounter it and how do they get away from it? So this particular moment isn't surprising, but it is dramatic, as our romantic tension has been building over several issues, but it looks like they were going to make it official and we were so close, and then this flooping fish happens. That is a great way to play with the audience's expectations, and thankfully, I can once again applaud Mars's writing. Oh, it's glad to be back. Ethan, within the letter, explains to his folks what he is up to. Using a stolen submarine to find a home for the lesser races. Don't worry about the sub thing, by the way. He will not be returning the one prototype that exists. He then goes on, explaining his quest to find a new sanctuary for the lesser races. And he means all lesser races, even those in the Heron lands. There are children, he says. We made them. We should cherish them. In the fight, Ethan manifests his sword and starts swinging it. The sea creature moves quickly, whipping around on Ethan, but he swings his sword wide, and a large arc of energy sweeps out, decapitating the beast. In his letter, he relates the things that he has seen in the East. The slaughter of innocents at the sanctuary, and Tyrus's horrible experiments. Maybe if they had seen it themselves, they could understand, but they're just going to have to trust that Ethan knows what he's doing. His train of thought shifts here, moving on to Ashley. He warns them that Kai's estimation of her is not impartial. Ashley has opened Ethan's eyes to the suffering of the lesser races and the responsibility that his privilege gives him. He admires her greatly. Kai might argue that Ashley has some kind of sway over Ethan's mind, but he promises his parents that isn't true. With the fish dead, Ethan turns to check on Ashley, who is running out of air. Ethan swims to her as she lets out a gasp. And come on, you know where this is going. Ethan and Ashley finally kiss and share their air. In the letter, Ethan admits that he's come to care for Ashley a great deal. He actually kinda goes on about it for a while, but he ends by saying that they have saved each other's lives before, and he's starting to realize that he would give his life for her. Whoa. You folks can't see it, but I am raising my eyebrows suggestively here. Suddenly, a wobbly word bubble interrupts our winding down fight scene. The swimmers have found Ethan and Ashley. 2 more of the massive sea creatures are with them, twisting through the water. The swimmers recognize Ethan and attach the same kind of breathing device that we saw previously to his and Ashley's neck. Ashley is suitably amazed by this, but it is old hat for Ethan. They follow the swimmers and arrive at a 2-page spread of the undersea city. Haven. Ethan finishes off his letter, hoping that one day his parents will think well of him. He fought for what he thought was right. He's sorry he couldn't be the son that they wanted. They deserve more than heartbreak and disappointment. But he loves them both more than words can convey. Don't forget that. Wow, there is so much here to break down. First off, let's start with an artistic complaint. When Ashley is about to drown, she is kneeling on the seafloor, holding her breath with one hand outstretched toward Ethan. And that basic idea is all fine. What bothers me is that Ashley's body is incredibly stretched out. The upper human body consists of a torso, a waist, which then moves into like the hip area, which then continues on into the legs. But Ashley has like an extra section of waist. She's too long. Like instead of a 6-pack, she would have like an 8 or a 10-pack. And this isn't something that Cheung does anywhere else in Scion. It never gets repeated, so I'm not sure what happened here. These underwater pages are largely devoid of things to draw. It's basically Ethan, Ashley, and the sea creature. That's it. There's no background details, there's no other sea life, there's no seaweed, so Cheung should have had plenty of time to focus on the characters and draw Ashley right. There is a neat, foggy effect going on underwater, as if we're watching this unfold with our own eyes in the ocean, and I dig that. That would be more beautiful credit to colorist Justin Ponsor. The big story elements here are the confirmation of Ethan's feelings for Ashley, and his own view of his self-worth. Ethan and Ashley were about to kiss in the sub, and Mars has been seeding moments of tender touches and kind words between the two of them for issues. This does not come out of nowhere, and that's great. I'm more surprised that Ethan wrote this letter before their kiss, confessing his love for Ashley to his parents, and us, before sharing his feelings with Ashley. He's known how he feels for at least a little bit of time, he just hasn't told her. Does that extend back to his scene with Kai just 2 issues ago, where he said that they weren't lovers? Did Kai's accusations spark this thought in his mind? There's no sudden moment of revelation in this scene. There's no one thing that seems to have made Ethan fall for Ashley. It's just been everything that Ashley has been so far, which is a pretty realistic way of telling this story in my mind. It's much less dramatic than heroic fiction normally does romance, but I kind of dig the much more subtle approach here. Especially since Ethan and Ashley are 2 characters who really live in their heads and kind of process what they're going through a lot, it makes sense that it would take them a while to get here. So we then have the end of Ethan's letter, and the whole thing is basically an issue-long Ron Mars recap. There is little of note within it outside of Ethan's confession of love. I am a little annoyed at this, because 60% of this arc has been people talking about the things that have happened in the previous 2 arcs of this book, which we read, but I'm trying not to get too feisty about it. It's not working, but I'm trying. What I wanted to note is how hard Ethan is on himself. He thinks that his parents think of him as a disappointment. That is so harsh, and personally, I think it's really unlikely. Ethan does mention that Kai has branded him as everything just shy of a traitor, so clearly he took the events of issues 18 and 19 to heart, even if I didn't. This is pretty normal for Ethan, who internalizes everything that he goes through. Even now, he still holds himself responsible for the war that is going on and for the death of Artor. So Ethan feeling like he's a failure isn't surprising, but damn if it don't hurt. Ethan's family has been super understanding, they've been kind, they've been sympathetic to one another. Ethan's argument with Kai in issue 19 is the closest that we have come to a fight, and even that was tame, in my opinion. Just don't be so hard on yourself, Ethan. You're doing fine. You're doing amazing given what you're going through. Amazingly, though, that is not the end of our issue. The issue ends at a killing field. The Heron forces have won another victory in battle, and Prince Kai and Princess Elena are going over their next move. With burned Rex missing, Kai wants to push on and strike at the Raven capital before they can muster the forces to defend it. A soldier questions this decision, preferring to wait for another batch of reinforcements. But Elena agrees with Kai. The sooner that they strike, the less prepared the Ravens will be. The only real question is which route to take to get there. Do they go across the plains of Dobruk, which is longer and safer, or do they pass through the notch at Felgard? It's faster by days, but their line would be stretched out, leaving them exposed to attack. The plains are the less risky move, Kai reasons. And that is exactly why the Ravens will expect it, a voice says off camera. They should take Felgard, burned mother-flooping Rex says as he enters the tent, as it is the unexpected that often yields the greater victory. Kai stares at him in disbelief, literally whispering, "Where have you been?" Kai does not notice the subtle change that the symbol on Rex's clothing is no longer that of House Dexter. It's still yellow, yeah, but now it is the symbol of House Sinister. This is my Shen in disguise, in case you weren't paying close attention. The house symbol is the obvious clue, but we also have Byrne's faith in a surprise victory. Mai Shen lauded such a tactic before, back in issue I think it was 10 or 11 when she was talking to Ashley. She is infiltrating our heroes and setting them up for a trap. No swearing. Which is a pretty smart and a good use of her superpowers, actually. Kudos to you, lady, for actually finally doing something, which is more than I can say for poor Burned Rex. May he rest in peace. Sorry, Burned. You were just so suspicious. Next week, Ethan and Ashley meet the rulers of Haven and request their aid in housing the lesser races. In the background, Prince Kai and Princess Elena are headed towards the Raven capital, unaware that they're being led straight into a trap. Join me in a week for Comic Book Breakdown episode 18.13, The Tide Turns. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.